Thank you, everyone. No, you don't have to go back. I love this guy. Where are you from, man? No, I'm just kidding. That's not a comedic thing. Anyway, I just want to kick this off by giving you a preface. So this will give you some insight into our relationship. We work together. And it's really hard to do two people up on stage during a prezo. So Kristina had it all mapped out, when I'm going to talk, when she's going to talk, all this stuff. And then I showed up, saw her at noon today and said, hey, when am I going to talk? And she's like, what? We had it all planned. So the good news is, thanks for laughing. Well, my friend here laughed. That was cool. And so, so look, what we want to make, we're going to make this engagement. We have one rule when we talk together is we're allowed to disagree with each other, and sometimes we're allowed to interrupt each other, and it makes for a better conversation. I'm kidding. I know when I'm supposed to talk. That joke didn't work, so whatever. I'll just drop it at that.
And he's not kidding, by the way.
Yeah, I'm actually not kidding. I said I was kidding only because nobody laughed, and then I realized maybe it's not a funny joke. Anyway, it's a long story. So I'm pulling up my phone because I just saw an amazing picture on the wall that I want to quote. So it says, marketers agree ABM is essential, 85%, right, or is essential. ABM's essential for generating new business. And it says the other 15% are making cold calls. And that's actually what we're here to talk about today, is that we don't have to have two sentences there, right? That we can talk about how 100% we can work together. That includes what we formally call the cold call, and includes the ABM processes that we want to go run, and actually provides you with the fastest path to account-based success. And so that's why we're here today. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So the first thing we want to talk about ourselves, as you can tell already, I can't wait to do that. We'll spend about 25, 30 minutes on that. And I'll take questions, and then maybe we'll do 5 on account-based strategy. Then we want to give you our point of view on account-based strategy. We'll talk about the challenge, right, that many of you face. We'll talk about, how to do this, account-based orchestration between sales development and marketing. We'll give you some really specific examples, and then we have a use case we can talk about. We'll give you some takeaways, okay? So, like I said, we're here to provide you with these insights. The thing we tried to do in this presentation today is we tried to get as specific as possible on some of the examples to provide you and some of the tactics to provide you so you can go take action right away, okay? All right, so let's start with...
Actually, before we get started, I want to do, I know we're not ever supposed to poll the room, but I'm going to do a quick poll of the room. Can I just ask how many sales development leaders are in the room? Okay, a few sprinklings. How many work directly with sales development, even if you're in marketing? Okay, that'll give us some context. So pander to marketing.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. By the way, that's amazing. That was on I was supposed to poll, so you're already seeing it. By the way, I think there was 4, she's like a smattering, there was like 4 SDR guys, right?
There was like 6. They were all right
here. Well, they're all together,
though.
That's pretty cool. Hey, guys, good stuff. I'll look out for you, but I might lean more towards the marketing side just because there's more of them. All right, so really quick on us. I promise it won't take 35 minutes. But, we're a research advisory consulting firm. We are focused on studying the world's fastest growing companies across their demand generation, sales development, and sales. And we take those insights and we provide them to our clients. We do that through either what we call playbooks, which is our consulting arm. We also have advisory memberships that people subscribe to get access to the analysts and the data. And then we do workshops for marketers. Actually, the truth is, if this was a sales room, we call it training. With marketers, we call it workshops. But they're both the same thing. We come in and help you go figure out what's happening. We have a wide range of clients, and the only reason I bring this up is so you don't assume we have one area over another. We actually have a range. We have big, we have the middle, and we have small. We have a taste of everything, but we're all B2B. We're primarily SaaS, primarily software. And the last thing, I promise, I'll move on, just a quick mention, next week's our summit. If you walk up to either me and Kristina and say, I want to go to your summit, can you make me a deal and give us a hug or a high five, you're going to get a discount, all right? You do that right after,
and I'll be around for a while. The discount depends on which one you give, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So with that, we will actually transition to what we were talking about today. So I think it's safe to say that nobody here is not interested in account-based, right? So we're going to share with you a little bit about how we define account-based, and then talk to you more specifically how we believe you can start recognizing some of those operational realities around it. So our definition of account-based is really the coordination of personalized efforts from marketing, sales development, sales, and customer success. None of us are surprised by that. You're all in this room. You're all trying to accomplish many of those things, but we believe that there are underlying attributes that will make that more successful if you focus on those things. The first is obviously making sure that you're focused on the most high-value accounts in your efforts. Now, where this, and I invite Craig to interrupt where he wants to, but I'll give you an example of, for many of our clients, the challenge around this is it's not just identifying the accounts we most care about, it's identifying the ones we actually are going to say no to. Not should say no to, but will actually not spend time on. That's very, very hard from an operational standpoint, right? We can say it sounds great, but most organizations still can't say no to some of those folks that roll in or the low-hanging fruit and all of those. But that's a big part of the strategy. Making sure that we are creating programs that are driven by intelligence. A lot of you know that. That's why you're here. We're not going to talk about those specifically today. But these next few things are critical to how you're connecting your efforts through to the rest of those teams, the rest of the pillars, sales development, sales, and customer success. So orchestration across those different areas is a big part of your account-based strategy, and making sure that you actually understand not just orchestration in terms of the, yeah, we should do it, but how does that change what we go do on a daily basis, and how should we focus? The other is making sure that we're creating experiences that are extremely high value. So we all know we've moved away from the batch and blast. How do we create those things that aren't, I know some folks earlier were referring to cupcake deliveries or those types of things. They're really creative, they're amazing, but it's actually the whole campaign that surrounds that type of effort that makes it successful, not just the individual creative tactics, right? And then making sure that we're doing so in a way that is high frequency, high touch to these accounts that we care about. So no longer is it just about one touch pattern to one person in one account, but how do we circle the wagon in a more thoughtful way to make sure that they're getting hit from every single angle, right? Now, a lot of organizations that have come to us, one of the number one questions we got after should we do account-based is, what does that actually mean? Like, what is the operational reality of how that changes our day-to-day and how we change measurement? So this is our account-based funnel, and it starts with many of the things. I'll walk through it in a second, but it really, we're trying to take folks away from thinking about the one-to-one or the one meeting, for example, equals one opportunity, and start thinking about how do we manage our interactions holistically across the entire account. So we start with our ideal customer profile, really targeting those high-value accounts, identifying them, moving into selecting which are the ones we're going to focus on first. And then really thinking about not just engaging the individual again, it's not just about the MQL, it's about how do I drive engagement across that account. So making sure that they're being hit in many different ways. We'll talk about some of the specifics, but making sure that even though I may be active with some prospects here and they went cold, making sure that I'm broad and deep within an account to have a lot of engagement across all of the different potential buyers that matter to me. And then we're doing some of the normal things. Sales development is setting meetings. We're hopefully setting multiple meetings with multiple stakeholders. We're bringing sales in, we're running the sales process. But the key factor is here now is we shouldn't be looking at just pipeline that we're generating, but actually like how are our efforts doing in those target accounts, those high value accounts, back to that original piece. And then driving through to close, making sure that we have a plan for how to use marketing and sales development in expansion. And then underlying all of this, we believe that instead of, again, just lead scoring, there's actually account scoring that you should be thinking about, and that scoring should be based on engagement and maintaining that engagement over time. Sir?
Yeah. So let's talk about the challenge here. I think I want to start with one of the things that I've been noticing as we've been talking to people. I mean, account-based is out there. And as I talk to people and the struggles that they're having or the successes they're having, I feel like one of the things that, us consultants and speakers and analyst firms, all of us, we're all complicit in it. We turned this into this really big thing. Everything was this really big thing, right? That's what we do. It allows us to charge you guys lots of money to come in and consult, which, by the way, you should still do. But an example of that is this idea that everything needs to be connected, and it does. But the issue is that it's really hard, and sales is probably the hardest. right, is to find a way to coordinate with them. And the reason we're here today is because one of the things that we've seen is, yes, like we have this nirvana where we want to get to an account-based, right? But actually, when we look at it and it looks daunting, and even when we start, it still looks daunting, it doesn't have to be that daunting. It actually should be fun. So when we talk about orchestration, right, for us, it's the ability to, run this coordination of everything, like activities, programs, campaigns. That includes things like we're in the SDR thing, phone calls, emails, et cetera. We want to distribute offers into these accounts or these sets of accounts. We want to hit multiple stakeholders in those accounts. And obviously, we want to drive higher engagement and conversion at those accounts. It sounds like fun. It's campaigns, right? But it is a challenge. So, the ABMLA had asked us to go out and study account-based marketing programs. We chose 50, and we looked primarily at people that have been doing it for a while to learn, from them. And one of the things you could see here, with the exception of sales and marketing alignment, which, by the way, it kind of goes with this whole topic we can talk about in a sec, one of the biggest things that people view as a challenge is this idea of execution and process and orchestration. It's scary, and I understand why, right? Because this is what we call the stock market chart at TOPO, because for a long time I've been out there, and Kristina's been out there, we've been talking about it, we put up the chart, and everyone's, yeah, I need that. And then we come in and we say, okay, you want to do this? Yes, we want to do that. And then we get in the room with everyone in the room like, oh, hell no. We cannot do this, right? Because it's a lot, right? So it's our dream, it's what we want to do, but it's a lot. And so there is an answer to this, and that's why we're here today. So when I talked about the account-based, next slide, account-based marketing study that we did, one thing we noticed was that it was really encouraging when we looked at the organizations that had success quickly in account-based. They had an account-based sales development program, and they were collaborating and coordinating with sales development. That's a big number, right? And it makes total sense. So what do we see on the other side when we're struggling? Well, I'm trying to meet with sales, right? And we're trying to get on the same page. We're trying to run these programs. My best example of that was one of our clients walked in, new CMO. She's account-based. She walks in the room and said, we did our presentation. It was all song and dance. It was awesome. And then she just put on the wall, I'm going to focus on one thing, meetings at your target accounts. And I'm going to work with sales development, and we are going to get meetings at your target accounts. It was a simple goal. It was smart. Right? Because what's the first thing she could do is you go to sales, say, who do you want meetings with? We'll coordinate, we'll do all that stuff. And then she went to sales development and said, I can help you get them. Okay? That's why we're here today. And one of the other reasons we're here today is sales development is ready. So we studied 150 of the fastest growing companies and their sales development teams. We asked them, how do you structure your outbound strategy? And you can see here, 45% are going to account-based sales development. That means that sales development is going to have a tightly defined set of target accounts that they will go outbound to. The second here is you can see partial account-based. Those are the guys who are like, well, we're account-based. They have a list, but if they want to go dip in and go grab some accounts, they can go do that. The intent is there. And then the final is what we call greenfield. That was the predominant outbound strategy leading up to this merger in the account-based world of sales development and marketing. Greenfield was, go ahead and go in the data thing, go download everything and just see what you get, right? That was the predominant use case. Anybody could tell you it's the reason why SDRs were sending 1,000 emails a day. So you're just going in and downloading everything and hoping things hit. The world changed overnight across the entire organization. Everyone said, no, we have a set of target accounts we need to go after. Sales development moved quickly. They're there. They're ready for you. Because guess what? It's hard. It's really hard. Think about it. You got a group of 23-year-old kids in the room that used to download things and send 3 or 4 emails, and things would just come up. Nobody cared about the accounts that they were. They just wanted them to go get lead. Then we go to them and say, oh, yeah, that 1,000 thing a day, actually you can only focus on 300 accounts or 100 or 50. Everyone made the switch in account-based. Things changed. Now they're ready because you know what? The key here is The people that are ready for you to walk across the aisle and say, let's go do this together, is sales development. Sales is much harder. I mean, you guys, I'm sure a lot of you know that. They're like, yeah, I want the help, and then you get in the room and it's like tense and all this stuff. Sales development's like, we're cold calling, cold emailing these people. I got 300 accounts, everyone's been wondering where the numbers are, and we can walk in there and say, we can go help you. And that is why we're here today.
So one distinction I want to draw, because we talk to clients about this a lot, is that when they're thinking about orchestration, they're thinking, we do that. We actually meet with our sales development team once a week. We tell them all about the upcoming events and campaigns. We give them a little bit of color, and then they go off and do their stuff. That's orchestration, right? And the answer is sort of. But there are a lot more things that you can do to make your strategy a lot more successful. It is that preparation. It is making sure that there is communication and an attempt at alignment. But more so, we believe orchestration involves sort of co-executing and not treating it as this is the piece we do and that's the piece you're supposed to do. We each have our individual elements, but we have to make sure that we have an effective plan for who does what when. And so one of the things we want to touch on today is we have a framework for that orchestration, and there are different elements that we're going to drill into. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the plays that people are doing in this area, and then talk about measurement and use cases as well. So this is our marketing SDR orchestration framework. The different pieces I will go into more, but it starts with making sure that everyone is focused on the same accounts. Again, we have this great ICP that we've defined. What are those high-value accounts? The challenge is, generally, that is more than the capacity that we have to support, right? So we have to figure out, like, how are we going to go after those? If we just have this giant ICP and the SDRs are going after some and we're going after others and we're not talking about what's happening in each of those, and even more so planning what should be happening when in each of those accounts, then we're going to be bumping all across each other, right? Making sure that when we design our campaigns that they're done thoughtfully. We'll drill into these more. Figuring out what those pre-SDR activities should be. A lot of that you guys are already doing. We just have to make sure it's sewn together a little more tightly. The SDRs will be doing their outreach. Obviously, sales will pick it up after that. And then all along the way, there's air cover being done by marketing. We're going to talk about each of these specifically. So when it comes to account selection, again, your ICP effectively narrows your target market, right? And so it's great, but it's probably still way more than the capacity that you have to focus on. And we know that certain accounts should be getting more customization, more thoughtful touches. They're the highest value accounts, so those tier A's potentially. We have to designate which ones are in that category versus the ones that are still really important, but maybe aren't going to get as customized an approach. So once we've defined and tiered out those different accounts, now we can start agreeing to what is our go-to-market strategy for each of those tiers, and what are the expectations from marketing and sales development to each of those. Then we can start preparing our actual campaigns. From there, we have to make sure there are two fundamentals to campaign design and account-based. Making sure that we have those high-value offers such that they are thoughtful things that will bring our prospects in. So no longer can we keep going with those generic us-driven messages. We have to make sure that they are specific to those buyers, that they're specific to their industry, that they're offering them something that they couldn't get elsewhere, right? So maybe it is our interpretation of something we can add value to their business. Maybe it's inviting them to an executive dinner. Maybe it's sending them cupcakes, per the earlier example. That's fine, but making sure that we're doing it in a thoughtful way that draws it back to why they should talk to us, not such that we're talking about us. The other piece is this is what I was referencing as to who does what when. It's no longer, again, that you go off and execute your campaign in a silo and sales development just receives what comes out the other end. In fact, we want to make sure that there is understanding of who's going to be executing what when, such that 5 days later sales development starts their calls, such that 3 days later these things start showing up, and that we are actually flanking these prospects all around, right? We're circling the wagon. We want to be making sure we do the same thing with air cover. And we should be informing sales development of what that looks like, right? So we are doing these, not just we're doing these ads, but this is what it's going to look like for them. This is what they're expected. So when you're reaching out, let's make sure that it's a curated experience that you can reference those different things of what it feels like for that individual prospect.
It is so hard to stand there, isn't it? I don't know what you're supposed to do. Like, I was like this, going, yeah, very interesting. Anyway, so...
it's very hard for him not to interrupt.
I know, it's so hard, so hard. Anyway, so let's start on the marketing side. Let me just say a couple things before we have to transition. There's a dirty little secret here, and I'm telling you, and I don't understand how we just figured this out. But when marketing markets to the same people sales development's going after, you will get better results. Guess what? It's funny, right? I mean, I appreciate those laughs. But it's not how we've been rolling, right? We've been rolling with separate databases, separate sales development's got their own thing they can go after. And just that simple act of working together against the same accounts improves results. Now, can we do, we're going to do it in a more comprehensive manner as we talk about it today, but just that simple idea is really important. And the thing is, it's so obvious, but we haven't been doing it. So I'm going to cover two areas. So the pre-SDR campaign. So the good news is you guys do all this stuff today, right? But the idea is, remember, so what we want to do is we want to prime the pump for sales development. This is old school. I use the example all the time. I remember I was at a IVR company and the marketer sent pillows, these satin pillows to the leader of the contact center. It was a horrible idea, and it was great for us as SDRs because it just gave us something to go talk about. And I remember because we would call in and go, yeah, I know, it's a terrible idea that we did the pillow. Hey, you want to meet? So, but now we're more sophisticated. I was yesterday in the exec council, everyone was talking about direct mail and all these things. Those things are awesome. They're even better when we combine it all together and we coordinate it. As you can see down the line, we go into SDR outreach. So these are things that you guys do. 2 weeks to 2 days before the SDRs start their outreach, right? We prime the pump, okay? That's called the pre-SDR campaign, and again, it's everything you already do. So I'll give you some easy examples. These are things that you already know, but like when we start out, you're hearing about how hot direct mail is. It is, but it's nothing has changed from the old days. It doesn't work in isolation, right? You can't just send people direct mail and hope they like it, right? Direct mail should be part of the play. I was talking to a company that, and we'll go into these other examples, but it was a simple change that they made, and they doubled the output of the sales development team by saying, before we start, we will send a direct mail to the executive. We will run our standard webinar invite campaign to the rest of the people there, right? We'll kick off our advertising and personalization campaigns. And they did it 4 or 5 days before the SDRs came in. The SDRs before that were cold calling. They doubled the output of the SDRs. That is why we're here. See, here's the thing, you guys, is like marketers, all of us in the room, we screwed ourselves. Because we said, oh, it's pretty cool, I'm going to get this thing called a lead, right? And that's it now. We're only allowed to tell them how we got a lead. But what about this other stuff? I mean, if I send someone a direct mail, what? I mean, I've got to track whether they come back and fill out a form, right? Or I send someone a webinar so that when the SDR comes back and calls them, they know who we are. That, you know what? That's like, this is good behavior. This is marketing. So we know the SDRs are coming in. We will be the first to shoot. And it changes their lives. I don't know if Nick Ezzo's here. He probably doesn't go to my prezos, but he loves this story. He's like, I can't quantify it, but I'll tell you right now, SDRs walk into my office and go, I called the guy and he knew exactly who we were. That's what we're talking about here, all right? So the second part of it is, so we launched 2 days to 2 weeks beforehand, and then we throughout the entire time, we should be thinking about our account-based advertising and other as air cover. You guys know this, you're demand-based customers, right? It works great when we think about it in the context of everything, right? When everyone wants to know how many leads we got out of it, it's not exactly a fair fight. But boy, it works great when it's part of a big program. That's the idea. So I gave you that Nick Ezzo story, right? Where he's like, SDRs come in, he uses demand-based. I mean, they're flanking the internet. They come in and give them a high five because they know they are. That's what we're talking about, air cover. The minute we launch into the pre-SDR campaign, or even before, what the hell, right? But let's blanket it so that when these guys send their emails and do their calls, we have surrounded them. It is, it is a game changer. It doesn't necessarily seem like it because as we toy with everything, but with everything together, the pre-SDR campaigns, and now we put these account-based ads, our LinkedIn ads, targeted SEM, whatever you're doing, these things actually improve conversion, and it's proven. And that's what we're here for. Now, we got to talk about the metrics at the end of this so we can talk about what you should be looking at, but that's what we're talking about here. All right, so we got 2 days, 2 weeks before we launched the SDRs. Now we're in air cover. These are all things you guys know about. But once we go, we go. We are all committing to getting opportunities at these accounts, right? This is the best application of advertising. You will see results, including hugs and high fives from SDRs. And that feels great. I'm just kidding. You're supposed to laugh. I don't know if it feels great. But they do come in and they do high five you, and that's the point. All right, so we are going to start in marketing. We're going to air cover along the way, then we're going to hand it to the SDRs.
Yeah, so on the SDR side, and it is really hard to not interrupt you.
I know, but
I
you
just want to
you got
interrupt
one
left
in,
and right.
It was a good time.
But on the SDR side, I think it's pivotal that whatever you're doing for air cover and pre-SDR, we can't just sort of tell them we did a thing. You should actually share with them. So again, back to high-value offers. I'm going to back up. You're like not supposed to do that, but I'm going to do that. When you're doing these things, so there's some examples here of some high-value offers that we're offering, right? We need to make sure our SDRs know what those things are and can talk intelligently to them. So, he mentioned the example of Nick's team and the SDRs coming in. It's also because they feel equipped with something meaningful to go talk about. So the pillow story, the great, yeah, that was a bad idea, but do you want to meet anyway? We have to draw those connections such that they are prepared to have meaningful, insightful conversations when they do get the person, right? And so when we think about the things that we're going to be doing for the SDRs, we'll do all of their normal outreach. We want to make sure that we are, again, connecting the dots for them so they can continue that conversation. So for the prospect, they're effectively continuing the same experience, right? We all know what the right and the left hand are doing. Now, the key for account-based sales development is making sure that they are maniacally focused on those things that you're doing, right? So again, back to those high-value accounts, we want to make sure they're not crazy distracted on a bunch of other stuff. So if you're doing all of these pillow sends and all kinds of other things, that they are ready to attack those accounts. They are prepared, they know what to say, they've done their research, and when the time comes to follow up, they know the exact message that they should be using with that account and those specific buyers. It's also important to make sure that we start blurring the lines a little between inbound and outbound. We all got so excited and segmented our teams and specialized them into inbound and outbound, which is great in a volume and velocity scenario, but when it comes to account-based, we want to make sure that somebody owns the conversation from sales development at that account, right? So whether the person's driven inbound, whether I'm going outbound, it doesn't matter. I own the message to that account, and I know how to make ourselves relevant and meaningful to that account. Here's an example of an SDR touch pattern. So again, back to our overall orchestration plan, these things are peppered in, right? So we'll talk about some of these different pieces, but making sure that they are equipped to do that research up front on that account. So they know all of the important things they should know about the account. They know relevant use cases. They know peer buyers that they can talk about, all of that stuff. We should equip them with getting that done. Making sure that they're ready to talk on an account level as well as on the buyer level is critical. I'll talk about some of those examples. So an account-based touch pattern has, it gives the SDRs the ability to expand in a way that's meaningful. So back to high-value offers, if we sent them something that started alluding to ideas for how we could help them if they were our customer, we want to lead with those ideas with the SDR. This is one of our favorite examples that we reference. This is an SDR at one of our clients who literally sat down with her account team and said, you know what, if they were a client, if Starbucks were a client, what could we do with them? Like, let's just pretend they were already a client, and let's actually come up with, several different ideas for how we could change their business with our solution. And she went ahead and packaged that up and just sent it directly to Howard Schultz. And she got a response, and she got a meeting. Because she took the time with marketing, with the rest of her account team, to actually plan out, let's look at the account holistically. Let's treat them like a customer. And the effort that we would put in for that customer, let's put it in advance for, again, our most high-value accounts. Now, the other thing we do is, as we progress forward, thinking about other creative ways to communicate that message. This is an example of a personalized video that could be sent, right? And it would complement a lot of the things that you're saying in your efforts in those pre-SDR campaigns, in your ads. It would also complement what the SDR is saying. So now, again, we have this concerted effort. Now, when it comes to figuring out, like, is it working? Like, all of the efforts that you're doing, all of the efforts that the SDRs are, it comes back to the one thing I mentioned in the funnel, which is when we get down to it, are we generating meaningful pipeline that is actually in those accounts we most care about? So that's one of the most important things we measure is target account pipeline. If you think about your entire pipeline, if, let's say, less than 50% is target account pipeline, then what are we doing with the other half of our time? We expect some of that stuff to trickle in. But if we're spending time on accounts that are not those high-value accounts, we need to have a conversation about that, right? We also need to make sure that it's no longer, again, about that one meeting, one opportunity. We shouldn't require our SDRs to stop. We should make sure that they're going back to the well, finding additional buyers to talk to, additional business units, whatever it might be, get multiple meetings with multiple stakeholders to really, really drive value into that account. And then making sure that we don't stop at the win, right? We have to have a plan for using both marketing and sales development to drive expansion, right? To continue to go back into that account and offer more value.
Can you go back?
Sure.
Go back again. One more. Okay, so do you guys see who's in the video? It's Matt Hines. I just want everyone who knows Matt to let him know I put him purposely in this deck and he didn't show up to my pre-zo. Let him know I'm not happy about that, either via Twitter or face-to-face. Thank you. Next. Yep.
Sure.
Okay, so by the way, the fact this is the use case, that's just to control us. Like, we got lots of stories if you want to hang out and talk about. But this one, I chose this. When we were talking about it, we're like, there's the highly contained account-based programs. There's, guys that are sort of sectioning off parts of theirs. I love this one. Do you like this one?
I do. Yeah. This one's fun,
actually. So let me give you the full context. So they're a smaller company here in the Bay Area. Actually, maybe I shouldn't call them smaller. They're an emerging organization here in the Bay Area. And they started with 50 accounts. They got so good at account-based, they're now at 9. 9. They get 7 figures total. They're focused on LTV and growing these accounts, and they're in 7 figures in all of them and growing. So what made them good at account-based? Well, a lot of what we talked about here today, right, we've watched from looking at clients. We're not that smart. Like, we have to go see what's working out there and capture it. They are a perfect example of that. So they do highly personalized, high-value, multi-touch, multi-persona campaigns into these accounts. It is impressive. And it's funny because as they were getting it prepared, they were wondering whether it was going to be worth it, right? Because there's all these personas and they're creating all these different things. So
actually, I got to interrupt real quick because this is cool and you're not getting to it fast enough.
What are you talking about?
So,
what'd you say? Oh,
so
man.
They literally had teams. So what they were trying to show was sort of in-store execution for some of these brands. Like, is your product actually on the shelf? And so they had teams go out and literally just take pictures at a local Walmart. And then they brought that back and they put those pictures in their ads. Talk about personalized, right? And you aren't going to do this across thousands of accounts, right? They did this for their tier A accounts. It was incredibly meaningful. And then they were able, you can tell the rest of the story if you'd like, but then they were able to translate it faster.
That was a value-added interruption.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Actually, that was huge. It was on my list. I was supposed to say it. I know I wasn't doing it. Anyway, so yeah, you can see here, so I'm not getting fast enough. It's a common complaint. I apologize. But if I string it out, I get to talk longer. Anyway, so personalized SDR campaigns about them. So you can see the names in here and all this stuff, but also the pictures, the footage, everything. As she said, these were pictures about their storefronts. High-value personalized offers. So what they wanted to do is say, well, look, like, what do you know about that? And then they'd come back and say, we can show you the data, right? The SDRs then follow with the multi-stakeholder outreach. They were hitting, there was a matrix here of all these different personas. They got I couldn't give you all the examples of what they do because it's private, but the open rates were incredible, right? The lift in sales qualified leads was 300%, and it's still going. I mean, it is really impressive. especially when you think about the fact that they're using 7 parent accounts, right? So they're going at this from a highly personalized, high value, multi-stakeholder outreach, and the success is fantastic. It's worth the time. Now, I know for some of you, you may not have 7 accounts, right? But for those that do, it was a great example of those, the tip of the spear, your strategics and your A's, how well this can work with personalization followed by SDRs. By the way, on the SDR messaging, that's all correlated to these ads, right, and to these offers, so that the final offer that they are offering the client that they're going after would be to talk about what they found, right? Instead of, hey, and by the way, do you want to do a demo? Actually, they're reaching out saying, you saw this stuff. Are you confident in your in-store execution? We have some reporting we'd love to show you and talk to you about. And it converts like a champ.
So a couple of things to remember, and we're happy to stay after and share some more examples. I feel like we could do that all day. But you really have to make sure that you start reasonably small. Like, I know the daunting aspect of account-based is really like, again, coordinating across marketing, sales development, sales, and customer success. It's a lot, right? So we see the teams that start with just marketing and SDR collaboration have the most success, right? You get to start small, 7 accounts maybe, while you've got other things going on in the background, get really creative around what those high-value offers should look like, and then iterate the heck out of it, right? So learn what worked, learn where the communication broke down in the plan, fix it, and iterate on it. Anything you would add?
Oh, I'm allowed to jump in?
Yeah.
No, I think the big thing, you guys, is just some points of emphasis. So one is, I'm very passionate about this. As we start to think about account-based from a marketer perspective, remember, we locked ourselves in on tracking only by MQLs or leads, right? And if for this to work, we have to lock ourselves in on a down funnel win metric, and we have to go do it together. Okay, that to me is really important, because that's often what we have a struggle to go change, right? Because it's a scoreboard thing. When we go into the boardroom today, we go in and go 60,000 leads, boom, right? Now we got to go in and go 60 leads, boom, right? Instead, we want to be able to say 60 opportunities at the target accounts. That we have to make sure that we have that synthesis in order to make this successful. And that, for me, I think it's just been a wonder. I mean, honestly, I love sales development. I love marketing. I want everyone to be successful. And it feels really good to have something that's unlocked value for people. I noticed that this was put back on here again. If you guys would like to, attend our event, please come up and say hi to us, and we're happy to talk to you about
it was a hug or a high
five
for Craig, by the way.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.